Everybody put your hands up.
Lights down. Tell them that I need all of the lights down. So the brakes, I do the shit for real.
Hey guys, so this, as you see in the header, this clip is going to be stitch welding and also it's going to stiffen your chassis. So depends on how you want to do it. So we're going to do show you what's going on with this car. So someone had already put floor pans in this car and didn't do it correctly. So like this would be considered a two-piece, or this, it depends on how you order it, but this may be considered a one-piece floor pan and this is your trunk pan. But as you can see, this guy who done the metal work used like self-tappers panels together for mock-up, which isn't a bad idea. The self-tappers can act as a spot weld as you remove the bolt and then weld it up. But the problem with doing that is to make sure you have enough penetration to go through both panels. This guy obviously welded it from the top side, but as you can see on the pan, that he didn't get enough penetration, so he didn't even burn into the second pan yet. So he's got his floor pan welded solid, but he didn't get no penetration. So I don't know if he's seen it before, so then he solid welded that, which is a no-no. You're getting chances of warping the panel. I can't really tell how they welded it, if they're just not the best welder, or which neither am I, or if they did kind of spot it in. The idea of spotting in is like, you know, you weld a little bit over here, then weld a little bit over here, then you go over there. That way heat kind of distributes and it doesn't just focus all the heat here, and it can kind of help warp the panel. Now with it having ribs and channels and everything, that makes that panel a little bit stronger, and that's some of those reasons. Like these guys, these are actually here for structure, but regardless, you know, a lot of heat in one area on metal is just obviously just a no-no. So what we're going to have to do here is, I can't really go back and spot weld, even though he's fully welded some of this. My biggest concern is the frame rails. The frame rails don't really look like they have a lot of penetration in them. This is a stick shift car, which is going to be harder on the frame rails, considering that's where the suspension holds on to. So now we have already went through and spot welded or stitch welded the front of the frame rails. We'll show you guys that in a minute, and then we're going to just kind of show you on some of the rest of this of what to do to either, you know, this could be purposed for just stiffening your chassis if like floor pans have never been changed out, Fox bodies and stuff like that. That'd be good to do with, or this is the best way to go ahead and try to fix this without trying to get into a buttload of labor for the customer. I believe personally this will be just as strong, because there is some penetration in some of these welds, but just not as much as I would like. And this is obviously a pretty nice car, so we're going to try to stiffen this up for peace of mind, and then let you guys see it. But after this, we're going to seam seal everything, because obviously there's never seam sealed, which is not correct. And then the customer opted with a paint matched underline that we use with Raptor liner. It's tintable. We'll get his color code, mix it in with the Raptor liner, and then we'll coat the whole underside of this. They sell it in tintable and black. Tintable, you can do whatever you want to. If you don't even want it to be paint matched to the car, you can change it out. If you want, I mean, if you got a black car and you want it pink underneath, you can do that too. It's all about what you want. We're gonna do a paint match, keep this nice and clean, and then we'll go with it. But I'm gonna swap over, get the welder going. Actually, I'll show this as well. So honestly, I don't use no big high fancy welder. This is like a $700 welder from Lowe's. I've used it for years. We do chassis and everything with this. I will say the way I weld is typically a little different. I'm very slow, very hot, which allows me to use this. This is a 110. You know, this is probably the most commonly used at-home welder. So I'm going to show you guys how to use this, or I'm sorry, I'm going to show you guys how I use this, and see maybe if you can pick up some tips and tricks on how to do it. So let's go find a good weld to start on. All right, so I'll show you on this one here. This is how I weld clean to rusty metal. So the key is here is you're going to get a lot of slag, a lot of spit and sputter in your weld if you start on the rusty side. So how I do it is I start on the clean metal, and then I'll bridge over. I'll come back over to clean and I'll bridge over. So I'm almost building a pool of weld and then dragging it into the rusty metal. That's going to keep the temperature in the nice thick new metal, and that's going to keep the the temperature short and sweet on the rusty metal. It's still going to be strong and it's still going to hold, but this metal is going to be a lot thinner than this. So this is how we're going to get these two attached, and it's going to work. It's going to work out good. So I'm going to swap over to helmet. We'll get a few things done. So as far as settings goes, I'm on setting C and about 5.5 wire speed. And I believe this is 025 wire. I like 025. I don't do a lot of filling in, so I can throw a lot of temperature in 025. And it don't take that long for it. The thicker the wire, the hotter the welder has to be to actually really melt that and then melt the contact metal that you're actually working with. So 025 makes it a little bit easier on the welder, and you can focus on heating up that surface area that you're trying to weld to. So again, what we're going to do, start on clean metal, roll into the rusty metal. So clean, rusty, okay? And I'm going to go start forward and work my way back. Alright, so you can see tons of penetration, nice smooth weld. And like as I started, I actually didn't have gas on, so it started real sporadic, spit and sputtering, and the weld's gonna look like a sponge. So all it is, when I turned my gas back on, I just ran right back over top of it. But if you heard me, it wasn't just like a constant stream. It wasn't just burning down into it. I just spotted in real hard, I rolled in my puddle, started again, rolled in my puddle, started again, rolled in my puddle. That way I can throw a buttload of temperature into it, but short amount of times. It's always going to be easier that way. If you try to run just a solid bead, not that you can't do that, but it's going to be harder on your welder, and obviously we're not trying to push the 140 too hard. It's going to be easier on it, easier on your metal, and then it personally allows me to keep that bead nice and flat, which means for me, as long as I'm staying on it, tons of penetration. And then we can lower this thing down and you can see all the penetration all the way through the top. You'll see the weld coming up through the top of the floor pan. And that assures you that you've got plenty of penetration. Because again, if he'd have came through the bottom, and he may have, that's why he saw a weld of this, which I still wouldn't have chose that. I would have either re-drilled my welds and re-burn them in, or I'd have came from the bottom side and got real hot again to at least meet those welds together. This isn't done by factory. This is not a factory way to do it. I'm all about factory when it comes to like a restoration type build like this. And that's just how I roll with things personally. But you can see here, I mean, this is where we had to, some more sheet metal was done incorrectly. So this is actually a really good example of penetration. This is a weld from the top side. So it went through a bracket and went into the floor pan, and that is pure penetration. And where you can see it's not completely flat, that's actually molten metal that the weld has burnt through and got all the way through that panel. So that's how it tells you that you've got all the penetration in the world. See, these are more welds that we done yesterday, trying to set up for this video. And then we'll go look at the front rails as well. So all these spots are done exactly how I just showed you guys. Start with the clean, roll into the rusty. Start with the clean, roll into the rusty. Every bit of it, all of this. Maybe not be the best welds, but they're pretty good welds for us. So I'm gonna do a little bit more welding and then we'll show you guys. So as you notice, there's times I give it a little bit more time to cool off before I get right back into it, is because there's a small gap there. And instead of beating and banging on it, it's just gonna make that frame rail a little wavy. I'm just using my weld to fill in the gap because it's already been welded. So there's not a whole lot I can do other than just bend that whole lip in. But the rest of the car has spots like that, and I just don't think it's necessary to go through all that to make it all match, especially after we're seam sealing. It is welded, so we're just gonna roll with it. But what I was doing, if I stayed on it longer, then it would have created more temperature, and it would have been more likely to either melt the frame rail down or melt a hole in the sheet metal up top, the new one. So I took longer to let it cool down and then got back into it because I'm just trying to build up and weld on down. So we're going to finish this frame rail down, do a little bit more welding, and then we'll talk about the rest of it. Okay.
They are. But I thought you about to do.
Oh yeah. All right then.
I'll get myself a gallon.
That's the Jerry. He owns this Mach 1, so he's a super cool guy. So you guys will see him in and out of videos sometimes too. But we'll wrap this video up. So yeah, guys, just like I said, start on your clean, roll into your rusty. If you're gonna spot weld like I do and just build off your spot welds, just in the gaps, just stay almost on the weld, and then you'll bridge it over. But when you create that puddle, you'll see that puddle bridge over into both sides of the metal, and that's how you fill that gap. And that's that's how I fill that gap. But that's you can get the job done with a $600 welder. That was my helmet is a Yes welder. You can get them on Amazon. These are Harbor Freight gloves. We get a lot of that work done. We do a lot of nice stuff with some basic machinery. We use some nice stuff too, but you don't take a $3,000 welder to do some of this stuff. But appreciate everybody. Again, let us know in the comments what you can do, what you like, and then I'll interact with everybody, and we'll keep on rolling. Appreciate everybody.